So the big seven and measuring your goals. And so I'm actually going to do another series of goal setting. And what we'll look at during our goal setting, we're not going to do it in this process, but I want to talk about it just a little bit. We can look at the seven equities. Who's heard of like Stephen Covey and those types of authors that talk about different goal setting? You know, they all have their seven equities. And you can do this in whatever you want. But, you know, the big seven for me is, you know, do you have health goals? Do you have relationship goals, money goals, contribution goals, knowledge goals, fun goals, and then how about something just crazy? You know, just pick something crazy. So think about that for just a second. You know, work on blind faith. Don't sit here and say, I cannot do that. I can't do that. But, you know, this runs a little bit deeper. And so we're in a very safe place here. We're all Samson. We're all family. And so, you know, be a little vulnerable. Put yourself out there because that's when you grow. And so, you know, I'll talk about just like even relationship goals. You know, that's not just with my wife and my kids. But, you know, when I first went through this process, you know, 4, 5, 6 years ago, all of a sudden, you know, I started writing down. It was like I started making a list of all the people that, you know, I met with in the past year. Who did I enjoy meeting with? You know, who was like, oh my God, that dinner was the longest hour dinner I ever had. You know, it's just doing it. But what it also did was I reconnected with aunts and uncles and you know, cousins. You know, I really just went all in on trying to just reconnect with people because what I started finding is that I was going to too many funerals. And, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm at my uncle's funeral and you're like, I haven't talked to him in like 6 months. And, you know, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, life's really short, you know, so let's talk. And so, you know, I would even challenge you there is that if there's somebody from school or one of your best friends that's not a friend anymore or whatever, it's so powerful to call up, and David's in the front row, so I'll pick on him. It's like, Dave, hey man, I'm sorry. You know, just call him. And you know what's funny is that Dave's probably going to go, sorry for what? You know, so here you've been holding this in all the time like, oh my gosh, Dave's mad at me for something. And he doesn't even know that we're in disagreement. So a lot of times just pick up the phone, you know, just do it. The contribution goals, you know, this is where I personally get really exciting. And so, you know, you start hearing words that you know, bother a lot of people like, hey, I want to be a capitalist. And, you know, you hear about that, it's like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? And it was like, well, you know, let's turn that around a little bit. You know, I want to make as much money as I can. I want to enjoy life. And you know what, if one of my neighbor's kids, you know, they need some money, or, you know, somebody is having a health issue, or maybe I can contribute a little bit more at church, or maybe I can, you know, throw something more to food drive or something. Well, if I can make more money, I can actually do that. So, you know, so it's not all about money. I know people are like, oh my gosh, you sound greedy, but it's like, what do you do with it? And so, you know, part of that is that if I could help others, you know, I think that's awesome. And you know, and I know that we're all on different levels now, but, you know, I just put one child through college. I'm still paying some loans, but I put them through college, and I've got another one in college. And, you know, so it's like, I'm very happy that, you know, I can buy them a car. You know, they've got cell phones, they've got nice computers, you know, they've got, you know, they're renting apartments. You know, who knows, maybe there's going to be a wedding or two, you know, maybe there's a vacation. You know, it's just where, you know, my son starts talking about, hey, I'd love to go to Germany. And it's like, okay, let's go. You know, pick a date. Where do you want to go? June? Put it down on the calendar. Let's buy it and work for it and get it. But, you know, that's a lot different than, you know what, we can't eat out tonight because, you know, we're 2 months behind on our mortgage and I haven't sold a house in 4 months. Well, you know what? That's your fault. Because let's get back to the business planning. You know, by doing this business plan, we're going to come up with a schedule that talks about every day you work, you're going to do this. So in other words, if I asked you guys to pull out your calendar right now, what does it look like? Yeah, okay. So if it's not on your calendar, it didn't happen. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, so here's the hard part. We measure everything. Track and measure. I don't care if you've got to get on the scale every day or once a week. I don't care, it's like, I'll pick on Sharon. Sharon and I used to meet quite a bit. We'd come in and it's like, hey, I made this many calls, I did this many deals, I signed up, I did, whatever it was. We spoke about it. And I'm also in coaching. I keep hitting my mic, sorry. I'm also in coaching. And, do you think every one of my weekly coaching calls goes awesome? It's like, no, it doesn't. So how are you going to measure results? We track it. And once again, don't get stuck up in, I don't have that system. I don't have a coach I'm paying thousands of dollars for. I don't have a new computer. Get a sheet of paper out. Create a spreadsheet. We can all do that. And just start tracking everything. So a lot of my people now, that's exactly what I have them do. It's like go across. It's like calls might be conversations versus calls, because I don't want you to count the dials that nobody answers. But how many conversations did you have? How many texts? How many videos did you do? How many appointments? How many open houses did you do? And then we can start looking at that. And why it's so important to track and measure things is that if I was your coach and one of you came to me and it's like, Dave, I talked to 300 people last month and didn't get one appointment. Okay, well, hey, now we know where we're at. It's like, well, let's look at that. Who are you calling? What are you saying? How are the conversations going? So we can adapt. Versus if they come in and they're like, oh, I'm making lots of calls and just nothing's happening. All right, keep going, keep trying. So if we really start track and measure, then we can actually help. It's just like all of our different lead sources. I don't know how many people, and I'm sure everybody in here has some subscription to something. Whether it's a Zillow or a RedX or a, some lead service that's going to, change our lives. Well, do you use it? Does it get return on investment? Look at some of our big teams. Casey Samson's been in my office. We've chatted about, just everything, how he's running his business. And sometimes it's just great to talk to a peer. And I absolutely love that. There's people in this office that's paying, thousands of dollars a month for Zillow. And it's like, all right, well, if you're paying, let's use round numbers and probably more than that, but if you're paying $1,000, that's $12,000 a year, how much business did that drive at the end of the year? Did you do zero? Or did you do 50,000 or 20,000? And we can measure it, because if we did zero, well, something's got to change. If you spend 1,000 and made 20,000, well, you know what? Donnie's favorite thing is we'll do it 8 days a week, twice on Sunday, right? Those types of things. So, we have to measure everything. And so even if we are, I'll go back to weight, because that seems to be an easy one that we can do. If you're at 200 pounds down and you want to get to 180, well, if you measure yourself once a day, and I'm not a doctor by any means, but once a day or once a week or whatever, and track it. It's like, because me, I started exercising once a day and, trying to lose some weight, trying to do the right thing. And, and it's kind of amazing that I've been doing that for 9, 10 months. And, and I can see there's ups and downs. It's not all good. But over the long haul, I'm doing pretty good. So that's all good. So track and measure everything. Got to know where we're at. I love this saying. We overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but way underestimate what we can do in 3 to 5. So Tom Ferry used to say that all the time, is that if you're willing to do what others aren't willing to do for like the next 2 or 3 years, you can do whatever you want the rest of your life. And, and I truly believe that. I wish I would follow more of his advice and actually do it. It's like you come to these classes and you go to these seminars and you leave with, 80 ideas and you try to implement 3 or 4. Well, why don't we go all in? Most of us in this room are full-time, so this would be, quote, a 40-hour week. When is the last time that you worked 40 hours? And that doesn't mean coming into the office and having donuts and talking with all of us and going to lunch and walking around the building.